President Biden and U.K. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak met at the White House Thursday, vowing to work together on key issues. During a joint press conference, the leaders reiterated their support for Ukraine. They also unveiled plans for a new economic partnership between the two nations. This is Sunak's first visit to the White House since becoming prime minister. For more on this and a lot more, Ed O'Keefe and Nikole Killion join us now. Ed is CBS News senior White House and political correspondent. Nikole is a CBS News congressional correspondent. Welcome to you both. Okay, Ed, I'll start with you. An economic partnership between the U.S. and the U.K. What does that look like, particularly when you're talking about a post-Brexit Great Britain?
Yeah, well, it's not a big free trade deal, which is what Prime Minister Sunak was seeking, what Prime Minister Johnson was seeking before him, but what they're not getting from the Biden administration. Instead, it's a series of big words and long pages of discussion on things like combating AI or figuring out how exactly to do to make use of it in better ways than the potentially nefarious ones over the next several years. Civil nuclear agreements, working together on mining minerals or making sure that there's enough of them for the advancement and the development of batteries and other technologies that are needed. But for two countries that already do a lot of work together, any hope of a bigger trade agreement after the UK left the EU is not happening. And once again, a British prime minister is leaving the White House today empty-handed. But the two of them stress that on Ukraine, on other national security and intelligence issues, and on dealing with new and 21st century emerging threats, they're going to be working in lockstep. The thing to keep in mind, however, is at some point in the next year or two, the British are set to have elections, and it's very likely that the Tories will get knocked out and it will no longer be Prime Minister Sunak. I think the White House keeps that in mind, knowing that there very well could be a Labour government coming their way at some point.
Yep. Interesting, Ed. And the geopolitics. The president was also asked in this 2-2 press conference with the prime minister about LGBTQ plus issues, and he really came out swinging at Republicans. Let's take a listen to that.
Our fight is far, far from over because we have some hysterical and, I would argue, prejudice people who are engaged in all what you see going on around the country. It's an appeal to fear. And it's an appeal that is totally, thoroughly unjustified and ugly.
Hysterical, he called it, Ed. This comes the same day we learned that the administration is going to be appointing an anti-book banning coordinator. What's the message they're trying to send here?
Yeah, here's another example of the White House dealing with, in essence, an emerging issue, or some would say an emerging threat, and that is the threat to free speech and to LGBTQ rights across the country. An unnamed but set to be appointed Education Department official who will sort of tackle the issue of book banning. They point out that hundreds of titles, many of them having to do with gay rights or transgender issues, have been banned thousands of times across the country. There's also plans for the Justice Department and Homeland Security to work together a little more closely on threats of violence against the gay, lesbian, transgender community here in the United States. All of it, of course, coming at the beginning of Pride Month. There was set to be a massive Pride Month event here at the White House tonight with more than 2,000 invited guests, the largest the White House has ever hosted. They've postponed that until Saturday evening now because of the smoke all across the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. But, an example of the White House tackling an issue that has become a big concern for a lot of Americans who are on either side of the issue. But in the White House's case, certainly they're on the side of gay rights and of free expression and of making sure that book banning that has been enacted by Republican-led legislatures and school districts and cities is done away with as much as possible.
Nikole, I want to ask you about an ongoing piece of drama on Capitol Hill. Everyone marveled last month when Speaker Kevin McCarthy was able to keep his Republican conference together to broker a debt deal with the White House. But now that togetherness appears to be unraveling and everything in the House has ground to a halt because of it. Please explain what is going on, how we got here.
Yeah, that's right. There was so much momentum leading up to that debt ceiling vote. And while we knew there were a number of conservative Republicans who weren't on board, now that that vote has taken place, they have expressed some serious concerns about how those negotiations have been handled, so much so that they have effectively stalled the GOP agenda. This week, the House was set to vote on two measures that would ban or prevent a ban on gas stoves. This was supposed to be a party messaging bill. bill. And we saw earlier this week a small group of Republicans from the House Freedom Caucus actually block this rule. The first time in 20 years something like this has happened. And so because of that, the Republicans haven't been able to move any type of legislation on the floor. So there have been ongoing discussions between this conservative faction of Republicans and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. I asked the Speaker this week if he felt blindsided by what happened. Take a listen.
People, like any family, have differences of opinion, and it's a time after the last big vote to get together and talk. And it's only healthy that you talk through it. Look, I always think tension only makes you stronger. Conflict makes you stronger if you deal with it. If you avoid it, it will perpetuate and become a bigger problem. Do I want to have this? No, but I'm not afraid of it.
Now, what he also explained is that he felt that some of this started between a misunderstanding between Majority Leader Scalise and Congressman Andrew Clyde, who has been pressing for another resolution to be advanced on the House floor dealing with pistol braces. So the Speaker suggested that it started with some type of misunderstanding between the two of them, that then bellowed out into this larger impasse with members of the House Freedom Caucus. I would note that that pistol brace measure is expected to be taken up next week in the Rules Committee, which suggests that House Republicans will try to get their agenda back next week. Interestingly, I would note that I talked to a more moderate Republican earlier today, Congressman Don Bacon, who basically said, look, we don't know what's going on. We've just been told to show up on Monday. And so there are many Republicans out there who are simply just hoping for the best and hoping that these two sides can resolve their differences.
Some tension between the House Speaker and his number two, Steve Scalise, now spilling out into the open. We'll see what happens here. Ed O'Keefe and Nikole Killion, thank you so much.